What constitutes doing business in states other than the state in which you organized your company? There is no settled definition for doing business in order to qualify in other states. There are certain standards that states follow and certain actions that may require registration in a foreign state. Let's go over some of the basics and some of the activities that may or may not constitute doing business in other states. First, let's go over some terms. Interstate commerce is transacting or transportation of products, services, or money across state borders. Intrastate commerce refers to any trade, traffic, or transportation in any state. Most states follow the guidelines of the Model Business Corporation Act with respect to what constitutes doing business. In general, whether a foreign corporation's activities are considered intrastate or interstate will be determined based on whether the corporation has localized its business. Let's go over some of the activities and the need for qualification in foreign states. Nearly every state provides that an isolated transaction does not constitute doing business in that state. Because it is difficult to define isolated, we will go over some of the do's and don'ts that are generally considered. These items are generally not considered isolated transactions and may require the need for qualification. Secondary activities, in most cases, don't require the need for qualification, but it is determined differently from state to state. Various factors must be considered when determining if a foreign corporation is required to qualify in a state because of its relationship with another corporation in that state. For franchise operations, it's the level of control that the foreign corporation holds over its franchise dealers that dictates if the company must qualify. Wholesaler-dealer relationships typically don't require qualification since the foreign corporation has no control over the dealer. States differ as to whether a holding company will need to qualify to conduct business. Some require qualification in the state where the company votes, holds meetings, and performs acts necessary to function. In general, a foreign parent is not required to qualify because its subsidiary is doing business there. Some states have statutes dealing with the question of whether acting as a partner or a member of an LLC or part of a joint venture constitutes doing business. Be sure to read the requirements carefully. Foreign corporations that construct, alter, remodel, or repair structures are typically required to qualify. The work tends to be a substantial portion of their ordinary business. There are a variety of factors to consider when determining if qualification is necessary. They include what you see here. If you need to be licensed in the state in order to perform these services, qualification is usually necessary. You will typically need to qualify for federal contracts. If you subcontract, you should expect to register in that state if the primary contractor performs some of the contract. Submitting bids doesn't generally constitute doing business. However, some states require qualification before issuing the contractor license and a contractor license before accepting a bid. Foreign corporations are not required to qualify to secure or collect debts. The majority of states have adopted this practice. If a sale is an intrastate transaction in all regards except for the fact that the mortgage was accepted for some or all of the payment, qualification is generally not required. The Model Act provides that creating or acquiring indebtedness, mortgages, or other security interests in property does not constitute doing business. Most states have accepted these provisions. Broadcasting is typically exempt from qualification. Sporting events are local by their nature and not necessarily exempt. Foreign corporations involved in the exhibition of films in a local theater has been required to qualify. Foreign corporations are required to qualify where their productions represent a substantial portion of their ordinary business. A foreign lessor typically does not have to qualify if there is out-of-state leasing of personal property. A foreign corporation leasing real property to or from others has not been required to qualify where the transaction is isolated. Qualification may be required where the foreign corporation's primary business is real estate, or if the foreign corporation is carrying on additional activities or enters into a large number of leases. Because the art of manufacturing in a state has been considered an intrastate activity, you may be required to apply for authority to transact business in that state. States differ in the services areas and are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. However, many states require companies that install equipment or machinery in that state to qualify. Foreign corporations that conduct research in other states may be required to qualify if the research is a substantial part of its ordinary business. Foreign corporations who transport people or goods may not need to qualify in those states if their activity is strictly intrastate commerce. Many states have statutes that provide that ownership of personal property does not constitute doing business unless it is its main business purpose to purchase and sell personal property. When a foreign company sends materials to be processed in another state and then returns the processed goods to the home state, it may be considered conducting business in that state, but this varies from state to state. When purchasing personal property from a foreign state that are part of the essential business, it may be required to qualify. Some states have statutes that specifically state that ownership in real property does not constitute doing business. In the absence of such statutes, the general rule is the same. If the corporation engages in local activities where the real property is purchased, it may be required to qualify. If you are selling securities either directly or through a broker, you are not required to qualify. When a foreign corporation consigns goods, the eventual sale is treated like it was made by a dealer and qualification is usually required. Soliciting orders that require acceptance outside of the state before becoming binding is not doing intrastate business, and therefore the company may not need to qualify. If sales staff is working to promote orders from local dealers, it may be found to be conducting business in the foreign state. Subscription-based businesses can be deemed intrastate business for the most part, and subscription sales of merchandise can be deemed intrastate so long as the elements of interstate commerce are present. It is very important for you to consult a professional when determining whether your activities constitute doing business in foreign states. Failure to register properly can result in late fees and penalties, so be sure to determine whether registration is necessary before making the move.